And there we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to our latest LinkedIn Live at Gain Advisors called Hotel Sales Still Isn't Working and What to Do About It. I'm joined here today with Amy Infante, Gain Commercial Strategy Advisor. Amy, how are you doing today?
I'm great. It's Friday morning. What a great way to kick it off, right?
Yeah, great way to kick it
Friday
off.
morning for me, I should say, not for you.
Yeah, in the US, Friday morning. Here in Spain, afternoon. Amazing way to end this fantastic week. Amy, today we're going to talk about hotel sales, and I prepared a few questions. The first one is really, where do you see the biggest cracks in the hotel's approach for group business, corporate business, anything that really sparks your interest?
Absolutely. So folks who probably hear my content or see my content a lot know that I talk a lot about infrastructure, processes, systems. And I feel like, it's different for everybody, but what I see mostly across the board, especially of late, is this idea we need to slow down to speed up. And it's a little bit ironic because my tea mug today says "Hustle, Darling" on it. So I'm actually, somebody that likes to move quickly and likes speed for the most part. But a lot of times I see leaders getting overwhelmed by that piece of it because obviously we have our team. We spend a lot of time making sure they're trained, they understand the role, and they're having good conversations. And they're focused on the human element in hospitality, which we never want to get away from. But there's a piece to that is so vital to set up the team for success, which is building your infrastructure. That can be technology, tech stack, but it can also be the processes and the systems that you put in place to ensure that your team is consistent and that they're, constantly doing the right things that you want to measure.
Yeah, makes sense. Is that approach anything different, from a portfolio perspective, or if you're an individual hotel? Say if you're a cluster sales director or a cluster commercial director, or an individual sales director, an individual boutique property. Do those approaches differ in your point of view?
Not vastly. I would say that the property level programs that we work with are typically, we can simplify some things a little bit more. Obviously, it doesn't need to be as robust. It's smaller teams, smaller budgets. But at the portfolio level, at the brand and chain level, you'd be surprised we're dealing with the same things when it comes down to infrastructure and process. I mean, sometimes they have a little bit more of a groundwork already prepared at the brand chain or even larger management company level. But there's still a lot of places that need, again, to sort of slow down, press the pause button and reflect what's working and what's not. And the things that are not working, is it because we don't have a process built at all? Or is the process just not fully developed? Is it not communicated? And those are the types of things that I love to work on because, it's kind of like the old entrepreneurial operating system that I go by within my own business. Bringing that into corporate it can be really powerful.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, how long have you been doing this? How long have you been working with sales teams at hotels anyway?
About 20 years now.
Wow. Yeah.
I hate to admit that, but yeah, I mean, yeah.
Fair enough. Great. Is the issue really here that hotels are chasing the wrong business, for example, or are they approaching the right business in the wrong way? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's different for everyone. A lot of times in the strategy sessions that I do with property level teams, again, we slow down and really talk about the ideal client profile. I think sometimes, so to answer your question, it's both in some cases, and in some cases it's just wrong target. Not always, though. I wouldn't say that's as prominent. But we do need to look at the target and spend more time in that area, because I think that that can be a huge miss. When we're moving with speed, judgment sort of kind of takes the back seat, and we just start throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. And so I think a really important exercise is to look at that target market, especially when you're talking about proactive and kind of filling in the gaps based on the hotel's needs, what's going to fill those gaps the best. And a lot of times, what I see is that the reason hotels are throwing spaghetti at the wall just to see what sticks and kind of just being reactive is because there's not a lot of data to work with that talks about the ideal customer profile. So a lot of times we really have to start from scratch, and it's just a brainstorming exercise to say what's working, what's not, trying to dig into some of that data. But a lot of times, from my get-go team, what we end up doing is an added value is having conversations and documenting those conversations with prospects so that you can build up that database and really see what are the common patterns showing up for the customers that make sense to work with and to target. So it's that. And then you ask the flip side of that is, are they just going about it the wrong way? I don't think anything is wrong, right? Like, let's just make that clear. Like, if you're taking action and you're doing the work to go find new business, it's not wrong. It could be modified and it could be improved, obviously. And so I think, again, going back to the processes and the support infrastructure that you have for the sales team to be able to do that better. And that's what I enjoy so much about, there can be small 1% little changes that you can make within those processes every day that can gradually make really big impact into what you're doing from a sales perspective. For instance, I know you're probably going to ask me next, like, what is that, Amy? For instance, a lot of, at the property level, what we see is we're asking a salesperson just to do all of the work for prospecting. And usually it's just some kind of directive, like, you need to prospect more. You need to be more proactive. Well, what does that actually mean, first of all? But setting them up for success around that in terms of the KPIs that need to be measured, but also providing infrastructure around email campaigns. This is something that we've tested over and over again and found over and over again that it creates more success for a seller when, especially because customers don't like to be cold called, right? Who does?
I decline them.
To get a call and you're like, well, why are you reaching out to me? But warming them up with relevant email content that's compelling and building that great target audience list is really important, right? And you have to put the time and energy into that. But then building that email content that you can push out to those customers to really warm them up and watch the engagement, watch who's opening, who's clicking, who's responding, giving them the right kinds of calls to action. That really helps sellers. Number one, they can feel more confident, right? Because it's not really just a cold call at that point. It's somebody who really is engaging with the content and showing some level of interest. And so they can rely on that information to do that. So I think that's, one kind of, it's what we've found to be the right way to do proactive business development from a property level, because a lot of times, we want to say, oh, there's no need to cold call. There's no need to reach out. Just drive them to your website, do all these digital tactics. But reality is a lot of branded hotels don't have that flexibility. And so this works both for the branded and the independent properties.
Okay, that makes sense. So if I'm hearing this right, you need to make sure that your target market is really aligned with what you're offering, your value proposition, your properties. Second of all, is really the enablement. So I suppose the content, so creating relevant content for that specific target market that is also in line with your properties, and then really the execution, which seems like a more human-led execution that I've compared to other strategies that I've heard of. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So when you look at high performing sales organizations that are perhaps outside of hospitality, right? I've been, we both have been in hospitality for a long time. I have never worked in any other industry, to be frank. But I'm sure there's a lot of learnings that we can take from other organizations and other industries that are, I guess, facing the same issues with within their sales organization. So, are there any cues or high performing tactics that you found out that can be relevant for hospitality as well?
That's a great question. I actually think it's there's tactics and there's also this mentality that I see from other industries and their commercial departments, really. Hospitality is just few steps behind in adopting the commercial system, if you will. And I've been studying and watching other industries, and I'm really blessed to be part of some entrepreneurial groups where I get to surround myself with entrepreneurs in, tech, healthcare, finance, you name it, like all kinds of industries. One of the things I think that I really admire about those organizations that are successful is they're adopting this commercial framework. They've been adopting it for a while, and they really do have a system to bring all of those commercial sort of silos that we have in hospitality together and align towards the business objectives instead of having one group really operating on a whole different technology with completely different goals, and then they end up fighting with sales, and it's marketing versus sales versus pricing. They're really bringing that all together. And one thing that I see a lot, and you probably see this too in the tech sector, because at Gain we work a lot with the tech sector, is they really are looking at marketing as part of their role is lead generation. And what I've seen in hotels is we look at sales managers, especially at the property level, and we say, your role is lead generation. Even companies that hire GetGo, they hire us for lead generation, but they look at us as salespeople. Really, it's a marketing tactic or several marketing tactics under a strategy to generate leads and build proactive business for a hotel. So that's kind of the mentality piece of it, I think, and really how they're doing it. How they're doing it is, marketing is really deploying similarly to what I just described with these email campaigns. There might be social involved, other sort of digital marketing to all drive to one goal, which is to provide quality leads for sales to then close, right? And again, then that not necessarily does it put less pressure on sales. That's not, the ultimate goal, although everybody would like less pressure, but it focuses on what sales is really supposed to be good at, which is building relationships and negotiating and closing deals rather than trying to hunt and find every little thing and reach into every nook and cranny that there is. That's really where marketing and sales can partner. And so I think that's what I really admire about a lot of the industries that I see successful. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think that that approach, that more I guess, valuable approach. What we see also in the tech sector or the tech side of hospitality is really automating or focusing on mundane tasks. Like, it's very important to prospect, but nowadays a lot of the technologies that we have out there can actually help you doing that, right?
Yeah.
So the same with the front desk, right? There's no need to have any manual forms anymore. There's technology to do that. So, and why is that? It's because we want people to actually focus on the human-led approach and building relationships, whether it's with a guest or a prospect, right? For a larger group booking. So I really respect that approach from my point of view. So yeah, one of my last questions is really, how can hotel sales leaders apply those lessons really without losing the human relationship driven nature of hospitality, right? Yes, hospitality is really driven by technology more and more. Still, we're not utilizing all the technologies out there per se. But what we want to drive to is really that human-led approach. So, any lessons that you've seen in the past that you would like to mention?
Well, I think you have to be intentional about it, right, as leaders. And I think everybody gets a little antsy and afraid of the idea of AI stepping in and taking over roles, but
Yeah,
it's really, I don't think that's the case at all. I think we've had lots of conversations about that, but I think the, for example, my team, we're still doing deep training on how to have high quality converting conversations. That's really important to us because that's a human interaction. But we already also apply a lot of AI automation and technology into our process. And we're testing constantly new technology and new ways of making that process even more efficient. And I hear a lot of, clients are coming and asking, how can we be more efficient? How can we be, faster? And so I never want to give the impression that it doesn't still need to be human led and have that engagement. That's always going to be important, right? I think we
yeah,
were just talking about like face to face meetings, how valuable those are, and phone conversations, how valuable it is. I'm finding it more and more in the last year how people are really embracing that human element. And I think it's because we went one extreme so heavily where everyone was just like overwhelmed by this idea of AI and automation and technology. And now we're sort of like, gaining that footing and gaining that balance, if you will. And
yeah,
I mean, ultimately, I think it's just finding a balance for your team, the culture that you have, and leadership needing to be very specific around that with the team, that is ultimately we have to take care of our guests. We have
yeah,
to make sure that we are having intelligent, intentional, grounded conversations with clients, and not just putting it all to technology to do that.
yeah. Makes sense. Um, so, Amy, my last question really is, okay. Now that we've thought a little bit more about, okay, the why and how, but for the listeners out there, um, you know they sometimes they think, okay, we hire a consultant or we hire an agency or maybe an advisory firm, and they give us this great document, and here it is. This is 40 pages of strategy that we've carefully written over the last 6 months, and then we'll go to a different project or different clients. Is that also the approach that you're suggesting and executing? I guess not. But yeah, if you could yeah, talk a little bit more about the process that you've been doing over the last 20 years, it would be great.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a great time to just kind of share Gain Elevate, right? This
Yeah,
is this is a new thing that we're launching. We're pretty excited about. So Gain Elevate is a collaboration, if you will, between Gain Advisors and GetGo. And the reason you described exactly what the challenge is. Like for so many years, from my role at GetGo, I've been brought into a lot of customers where they've had advisory come in and tell them, this is how you need to restructure, this is how you need to build this program. And they swoop in, give great, kind of high level, and then leave, and the customer is left to figure out the how and execute it. And GetGo a lot of times is brought in to execute a part of that, or much of that, if you will. Where Gain Elevate comes in is we've got the experienced advisors that have been like you and I, but there's a whole team of advisors with years of real hands-on experience in hotels and hospitality that can design and enable a program, a complete shift, a big change, if you will, or even small incremental changes. And then we have the team of GetGo that can actually execute and help, whether it be a portion, whether it be a small time frame or a long time frame. And what that does is really mitigates the risk on the company to basically deploy. I don't think that there's not an appetite anymore from my perspective to launch these large multi-million dollar, multi-year initiatives at the corporate level. There's just so much risk with that, with all the uncertainty in the markets and the economy. And so they want to test and pilot new ways because they know that there's a need and that they've got to meet a number. And a lot of times what we're talking about, this is a commercial approach. We're talking about revenue generation and revenue sustainability. And so they need to get something going, but taking on the risk to do it in a just big, large, overwhelming way there's no appetite for that. So I think that that's where Gain Elevate can really come in and assist, whether it's a property, a management company, or even a brand and a chain level, working on those initiatives and making sure that it's phased appropriately. It's not overwhelming for the team, and we've got execution at play. Like we can actually do the work so you can see results from it, not a year from now or 2 years from now, but in the midst of making that change management happen.
Yeah, and it's also, as if I understood it correctly, it's the designing and enablement are going to be executed. So it's actually the strategies that we collaboratively create are actually going to be executed by the same team, or even people that are very aligned within the process from day one. So that's great, Amy. Is there anything else that you want to tell the audience today, whether it's a marketing director or a sales director or a CCO that's watching? Anything that you want to bring across before we end the show?
I think it is, don't be so hard on yourself. Like, I think there's a lot of people out there. I talk a lot about mindset. And so I always like to end with a little bit of a mindset. There's more people probably dealing with the challenges that you're dealing with than you realize. And so I think it's raise your hand and reach out, whether it's just a conversation with a colleague within another organization, somebody that you can trust, and get it out of your head. And, that really helps to, I guess, alleviate the overwhelm, because I feel a lot of overwhelm, and frenzy was a word that was used the other day with me. A lot of frenzy. And yes, we all need to move quickly and get results. But it also really pays to take a step back and slow down a little bit so that you can speed up more intentionally and be more impactful.
Great. Fantastic. That's a great way to end LinkedIn Live today, our latest one. Amy, if anybody wants to connect with you, where can they reach you? Would it be LinkedIn, or where should they go?
Yeah, you can link in with me. I'm there, Amy Infante -still. And you can also email me at amy@getgogroup.com, or I should give the gain, amy.infante@gainadvisors.com. So lots of ways to reach me.
Awesome. Okay, I'm sure they will. Thank you very much, Amy. And yeah, have a good day. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Vincent.